Hey guys, we are having a blind scoop challenge today. Whoever can scoop the most marshmallows into this bucket, wherever it is, wins. You can't feel for anything, can't touch the bucket.
How much time do we have?
30 seconds.
2, 1, go! Here we go, here we go. Oh, you got it! Dude, you're so close. There it is. Oh, very nice. I think you got that one. You guys are lying. You guys are lying. Come on, you have 15 seconds. 3, 2, 1.
2, 1, go.
I'm not getting it.
Dude, it's so stupid hard.
Go, 3, 2, 1, go! Here we go, here we go. Oh, whoa!
Where's my bucket? Who moved my bucket?
That is sad.
Keep going, keep going. Sean, you got 15 seconds.
Somebody moved it.
So you cheated.
Got the spin. Bucket. I thought, I was like, man, everybody moved on marshmallows. I knew it. I knew it.
All right, guys, for our winner for the Blind Scoop Challenge is Pastor Matt.
Always wanted marshmallows.
Hello! Welcome back to another week of Elevate Online. Glad you guys are here with us today. Okay, so I gotta start this by asking you, what is like the coolest thing that you own? I mean, take a second to think about it. All right, so whatever that is, I bet you it's really awesome. A while back, I remember seeing this TikTok. Again, I know I'm sorry for all those people who are like, oh, TikTok's horrible. I remember seeing this TikTok, and there's one where basically this girl is like going around her house and sharing like, hey, everyone's got these cool little knickknacks, and here, I'll just show you.
Everybody has that one thing in their house that everybody thinks is so cool. Could be a hidden cabinet,
Dope.
little movie room,
Want that?
gadget, but ours is this.
And I know that's so random and funny, but my favorite thing that I think is pretty cool in my house, like if there's one really cool thing that I really own, it's my Star Wars FX lightsaber. Now, since I don't have it here with me, I'm just gonna go show it to you. So, hold on.
This is my Luke Skywalker Force FX lightsaber.
I love this lightsaber. It's really dope, it's really awesome, it's really cool. Man, Jessica got this for me for Christmas this past year, and I love it. It's Luke Skywalker's lightsaber, the one he uses in Return of the Jedi. I think it's just the coolest thing that I have. And the reason why I'm mentioning this fun little tidbit is because I think a lot of us own a lot of cool things, but there comes a time where we need to begin to own more than just the physical things that we have around us. There's a lot of times where we need to own circumstances and own moments and own the things that we are dealing with. Today, we're doing a standalone message, and we're kind of just doing our own thing, talking about what it means to own things and what it means to own our circumstances. I think all of us, especially over the past few months, have encountered brand new circumstances, brand new moments, brand new opportunities, brand new challenges. I think if we don't begin to own those things, they're going to begin to own us. And so today, I want to talk about what it means to own our circumstances. What it means to own your circumstance, what it means to own whatever challenges, whatever things that are coming our way. And so today's message is titled, Own Your Shipwreck. It's gonna get good. So I don't know if you guys knew this, but marshmallow has no E in it. Marshmallows. We've been just doing this wrong the whole time. Marshmallows. All right, so to get today's lesson started, we're going to Acts chapter 27, starting in verse 20. Let's read it. For many days we could not see the sun or the stars, and the wind kept blowing very hard. We finally gave up hope of being saved. What a dramatic way to open this message. So today's lesson, we're doing something a little bit different. I usually share a few verses and a few scriptures here and there spread out throughout the message, but today we're going to focus on, instead of just a lot of tiny ones, we're going to focus on one big one. And so in order to do that, I need to summarize the whole chapter of Acts chapter 27. Let's do it. Once upon a time in the Mediterranean, Paul, our guy Paul, was a prisoner about to take his way towards Rome. See, what had happened was Paul was doing his thing, proclaiming the good news, spreading the gospel, doing all those great things, and then the Jewish leaders, the guys that he was kind of working for, didn't like that. In fact, they got really mad at him and basically tried to get him killed. But then once the Roman officials, the guys who were actually in charge, heard that the Jewish guys were going to try to kill Paul, they're like, wait a second. This guy is a Roman citizen. You can't just straight up and kill him. And so they decide to take Paul all the way to Rome to have a trial in front of Caesar. So at this point in the story, they're about to leave this place called Crete. And as soon as Paul notices these heavy winds, he's like, hey, guys, we probably shouldn't go on this trip right now. We should probably just hold things off and just wait. Probably not a good idea to try to go into the middle of the sea while a storm is coming.
The storm is coming.
But they kind of don't listen. But they set sail, they go off into the middle of the ocean. Sure enough, a storm hits them, and it hits them really hard. Things are going around, things are blowing around. They are stuck in the middle of the sea while the storm is raging on. And so the storm is getting so rough, so hard, that they decide to start throwing things off to make the ship lighter. They start throwing things out, they start throwing cargo, they start throwing away equipment, and they are freaking out. And so Paul decides to get up, and he basically tells them, hey guys, I told you so, but listen, don't freak out. I know that I knew this was going to happen. Last night in a dream, an angel of God came and told me that, hey, there's good news and there's bad news. The good news is we're all going to live. We're all going to survive because God really wants me to go talk to Caesar. Bad news is we're going to be in a shipwreck. So 14 days later, it is still storming. It is still all over the place. And the sailors, they think that there's land nearby. And they go, okay, hey, that's it. Land's nearby. Even though we can't see it, let's go ahead and get out of the ship and just try to make our way there, even though they can't see it. And Paul goes, hey, probably not the smartest idea to do right now. Let's stop and just think. And he basically reminds them that, hey guys, we have to do this the right way. We have to do this the way that the angel instructed me to. And essentially, we have to go through with the shipwreck. So once the sailors kind of settle down, Paul realized that these guys haven't eaten. And so what he does is he blesses the food and he feeds all the sailors, the prisoners, the officers, everyone on board, because you still got to eat in the middle of a crisis. And then the next day, they see the shore. They see what looks like the shore. They put everything in full gear, headed towards the island, and they're trying to get closer, trying to land at the island or the land, whatever it is, they don't know, but they get stuck in a sandbank. So the officers and the prison guards and basically everyone else is just freaking out, and they're thinking, okay, there's not a good way to get off this ship without the prisoners escaping, so let's just kill them. And Paul's like, dude, not cool. And basically just kind of goes, look, there's a better way to do this. And Paul basically comes up with this really great plan using planks and all these other fun things, and basically figures out a way to save everyone without killing anyone. So again, they all make it ashore, and once they get on there, they realize they're at the island of Malta, and they all get there, and everyone's fine and safe, but Paul decides to be a nice guy and to start some fires up. So he's going around minding his own business, and then as he's picking up some firewood, a snake just straight up bites him. And everyone sees this. Everyone's freaking out, but Paul's not freaking out. He basically just shakes the snake off into the fire. Everyone's just sitting around kind of waiting for Paul to just die, but he doesn't. And to summarize the rest of the story, they do end up making it to Rome, but that's where we're going to cut off in this story. So why this story? The difference between Paul and these prisoners and the guards and the officers is that he took ownership over the moments and not just let them happen to him. Very different, very important, and we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about what it means to own the things that happen around us and even on the things on the inside of us. So today I'm going to do things a little bit differently and go over 8 different ways that we can own the things that happen around us. And so let's get into it. Okay, so for this first part of the story, we're gonna title it Storm at Sea. Let's do it. So in this first point, Paul basically tells the officers and the people in charge, hey, there's a storm coming, probably shouldn't go out there. They decide, yeah, we're gonna still do it, and decide to go out, and sure enough, a storm happens. Paul shares the failures of the people not listening. He basically says, hey, you should have listened to me. But then Paul also then reassures them and basically tells them, take heart, because God still has a mission and a purpose for him. So he knows that him and everyone else is still going to live. So 2 points, 2 ways that we need to have ownership in our lives that Paul demonstrates right here in this section of the story. One is that we need to own our failures. What's so important about this story is that Paul very clearly says to these sailors, hey, you guys messed up. You didn't listen to me when you should have, but guess what? God's still in control and we are going to be okay. I think it's really important that we own our failures, that we own the times when we mess up. We need to own our failures. We need to own the things that we've done in our lives. And more importantly, when I say own your failures, I don't mean stay in guilt or stay in shame. That should never be a part of the owning your failure process, but rather by owning your failures, you learn what happened, you learn by your mistakes, and then you go forward and do new, better things. In other words, don't let your failures own you. And remember this, you might have failures in your life, but that doesn't make you a failure. And then also another thing that Paul does in this is that he owns his mission. Paul knew that he had a purpose in life. He knew that he had a destination, that he had a goal, that God has placed in front of him a future, and that no matter what, he knew that God was going to fulfill his promise. And so in the same way, we need to own our mission. We need to own whatever God has placed in our lives. Own that mission. Know that without a shadow of a doubt, if it's God given, that means it's God promised, and that means it's going to be fulfilled. Okay, so the next section in this story is, we'll call it 14 days later. They're still in this storm and things are happening all crazy and about. The sailors think they see land, and so they decide to get off the boat and try to go to land, even though they can't actually even physically see it. Paul says, no, stop, you can't do that because that's not what God has called us to do. And once the sailors get back on the boat, he feeds them because he realized they haven't eaten yet. So one of the things that Paul takes ownership over in this circumstance is emotions. We need to own our emotions. I mean, these sailors, they think like they're close to land. Like they can't see it. They can't even physically see if land is around them. And so they get really excited. They get really passionate. All right, well, let's just go. Let's just do it. It's so crazy to think about. If they would have gotten out of that boat, or excuse me, out of that ship and into those small little boats, those guys would have died in that storm. Paul realized in this moment that we need to own our emotions. And now hear me out. Emotions are God-given. They are God-created. They are meant for us to help build relationships, to connect. Our emotions are powerful. And if we don't control our emotions, sometimes they'll control us, and they'll allow us to create these really long-term consequences from short-term emotions. And so don't let short-term emotions create long-term consequences. The second part is he makes them eat. And so I took this as we need to own our growth. When we face challenges, when we face hard times in our life, it's easy for us to just stop everything else to just get by. And hear me out. I think it's important that we do those things to help us just get by, but we also need to do things in the middle of our storms to help us grow, to help educate ourselves with the things that we need to be doing, because whenever God has called something in our lives, we are going to get past it, and we need to be prepared for what happens after the storm. Okay, so for this third part in the story, we're going to call it the shipwreck. They see land and they go, okay, we need to go to land. So they arrange it to where the boat is basically going full steam ahead towards land, and instead of hitting land, they hit this sandbank. They get stuck just a little bit outside of the island. And as they're stuck there, and the officers and the guards are like, oh man, I don't know if we can make it to shore without our prisoners escaping, so let's just kill them. And Paul basically goes, yeah, no, stop, think about this, and basically comes up with a plan that saves them all. So 2 things that Paul does here that I think is really important for us. And number 1 is that we need to own our actions. We need to own the things that we do and to do the right thing. In this moment, the guards and the officers were trying to get out of their situation the easiest way possible. But sometimes the easiest way is not always the best way. And sometimes the easiest way is not always the right way. But let's think about it this way. How many times do we try to do the easy things in life because we don't want to do the hard things? Sometimes we want to do the easy thing because it's just that, it's easier. We don't want to face the challenge head on. We don't want to have to work extra hard. We don't want to have to do the right thing sometimes. Sometimes we just want to bend the rules a little bit. Sometimes we just want to get somewhere faster by just cutting ahead or whatever that looks like. But instead, we're not called to do things faster necessarily. We're called to do things the right way, to do them God's way. In the same way that Paul listened to God and knew that it was the right thing to do to save these people's lives, and even though it was hard, he knew it was the right thing. And the second thing that Paul owns here, and it's very important for us, is that we need to own our input. Here's what I mean. Paul, he was the only Christian that we know of on this ship. And throughout this whole story, we see time and time again these prisoners, these guards, these officers constantly listening to Paul because he keeps getting it right. He keeps getting it right because he keeps listening to God. In the same way is we need to change our input sometimes. We need to own what we're listening to, who we're listening to, and I mean, essentially, it means that we need to listen to God more. It means that just be in relationship with Him so that way when hard, crazy things are happening, we're listening to the right voice. I think it's during the hardest moments in our lives that God is actually presenting us an opportunity for miracles to happen. But in order for those things to happen, we have to listen to God. Okay, so for the last part in this story, we're going to call it the beach. It's exactly where we end up. They get off the ship, they land ashore, they're all safe, everything's happy and fine. Paul ends up getting bit by a snake, but then as that happens, he doesn't freak out. Everyone else does, but he doesn't because he knows something really important. And that is where we get to our next point, is that we need to own our identity. You see, the reason why I think Paul didn't freak out here is because he knew who he was in Christ. He knew that his Father, his heavenly Father, was going to protect him. And the same way it is with us, is there's going to be a lot of crazy, hard moments in our lives. A lot of things that are going to hit us unexpectedly. Things that are going to jump out at us and attack us from out of nowhere. But it's during those moments that I think we need to take time to remember we are children of God, that we are sons or daughters of a Father who loves us so much, and that if He has called us for something for us to do in our lives, He's going to make sure that it gets done. It may not always happen the way we think it's going to happen. It may not always happen the way we like it, but God is going to be there for us and to walk through that pain with us and to actually even grow us out of those circumstances. And then the last one, and I think this just basically sums up the whole story, is that Paul owned his circumstance. It doesn't matter what part in the story he was at, it doesn't matter where he was at, he owned whatever was happening around him. He owned the things that were coming at him. Instead of just hitting him and him acting like the rest of the people, allowing him to freak out, to act in his emotions, to lose his mind, to try to do things without thinking clearly, he owned the circumstance. Don't let the enemy stop you from what God has called you. If God has put something in your life, guess what? He knows that you can get through it. He knows that you can use His power, you can use His word, you can use the things that He's put in your life to actually go forward and to just pound down those walls, to pound down those obstacles that are preventing you from getting to where you need to go. My friends, whatever you're going through today, whatever challenges you're facing, whatever hard things that you have to do right now, let me encourage you with this. Whatever crazy hard things that are challenging you, God created you to be able to go through it. And to not just get through it and to just, get by, but rather to actually thrive after it, to do amazing and incredible things in your life.
Hey you guys, thank you for joining us today for today's service. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got some good word out of it. Don't forget to tell all your friends. And please don't forget to like, subscribe, and put the, what is the little?
Ring that little bell.
There we go, that's what it's called. And join us here on YouTube all the time.
Yes, we have services to watch. We have devotionals. We have Speak Up with PT and friends. It's a great time. So come on, yeah,
that's really it, guys.
Thank you guys again for coming to join us. We're so glad you came.
We love you. Bye. Have a great week.
Yes.